forward into this future have tremendous ideas that we can't ignore. And finally, I want to make sure that we bring in future people. And they are as real to me as the ancestors. Today, when I'm trying to make a decision, I consult the ancestors and I consult the future wise ones that will let me know how to step gently on this planet and not harm. And so I call them into this space as well. I'm a little troubled that technology is having so much problems. And I think that's a metaphor and it's a cautionary tale. If we put too much of our efforts just strictly into technology, we are going to be having problems. So I want to make sure that technology is always guided by wisdom of humans, wisdom of the earth, wisdom of the animals, the plants, etc. As we're creating a shared language, I just came in from DC last night and I had a snow globe experience. Tricia, I'm already using that language. A snow globe experience because some goofy person in Texas or somewhere said that there was a bomb on an aircraft coming from Texas and it shut down DCA for 2 or 3 hours. All the planes were grounded and all the planes coming in could not come in. I was the beneficiary of that late last night of seeing how one call shut down an entire nation. Right. So I am not a big fan of resilience. Why does it affect me? I'm not a big fan of resilience because I don't think it goes far. I think resilience is looking at how do we survive the current challenges and problems. Now, what I'm going to be talking to you today is about planetary health, which moves way far out and says, how do we prevent these problems from occurring in the first place? You've all seen this. Any of the information that I use is in the creative commons related to planetary health. We always like to convey that this is an ancient way of doing it. This is not new. We once understood in some communities, like Karen's community, understand how to be in right relationship with all the rest of the beings on the planet and not destroy it. But planetary health is a modern movement to understand that this relationship, when it's broken, health is impacted, and our lives are impacted. So I want to acknowledge and stress that the knowledge has preserved us for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And how do we get back to once we, but some of us want to see. And you can see here, I'm sort of a lot of pictures of things I do here. I'm a native Minnesotan. I love the land. I love every bit of it, every plant, every animal, every rock, every stone, every bit of water, every bit of air. I'm an academic. I am connected with the United Nations. I do a lot of work in Washington, D.C. with the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. I'm a nurse. Here I am giving COVID shots over in the rec center given the pandemic. But my most important job is being a grandma. And I want to look those little kids in the eye and say, I did everything I possibly could to create the environment where you and your children and all the people, all of your children, all your grandchildren flourish. So because I love Minnesota so much, because I love our plants and our animals and our birds, etc., I began seeing the changes very late in the 1990s. And I became a climate activist and was very, very involved in climate work. And I like this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We're all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects us all in Europe. Absolutely. That's what you're talking about of this exposome, internal exposome, external impacts. This is a new language for me too. And how do we move into space? We need to have the understanding that's all interconnected. So why are these threads that have connected us for, well, ever since the Earth was born? How are they breaking and why are they? Because I've seen us move very quickly to solutions, but we have to understand cause. Otherwise, our solutions are out of line with the cause and they're not big enough, bold enough, fast enough to make the changes that we need to make. The United Nations now refers to this situation that we're in as the triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution of our air, soil, and water. And I'm going to be sharing with you that it's not just that. The Stockholm Resilience Center in Stockholm, the Stockholm University, has figured out, like the body, so you hear a lot of this intersection of technology, body, science, etc. And as a nurse, I can tell you this as a living story. We have all the view systems inside our bodies that allow our bodies to survive. Cardiovascular system, the pulmonary system, the endocrine system, renal system. And we can do pretty well when one goes down. Well, let's get a person on dialysis. Oh, their heart's having problems, let's get them on meds. Well, when you start to have a cascade, and these are all interconnected systems, the body can no longer survive. The Earth, as a living twin, living model, is very much the same. And the Stockholm Resilience Center has figured out there are 9 planetary systems that all work integrated together to make an environment where life can thrive. Okay. In 2009, we had crossed 3 of those boundaries. So remember the metaphor of the body. By 2015, 4 of those boundaries. By 2023, we had crossed 6 of those boundaries. And just in September, it was announced that we had crossed our 7th. So what are these boundaries? Well, climate change is one, ocean acidification, fresh water use, land use, climate change certainly, introducing novel entities into places they shouldn't be. That's basically introducing chemicals into places that shouldn't be. Stratospheric ozone depletion, and increased aerosol loading or pollution. This is one that those of you that love agriculture need to pay attention to. Modification of our biogeochemical flows. Our phosphorus and nitrogen are in places they shouldn't be. And we have exceeded what the Earth is able to do with phosphorus and nitrogen. So that is a boundary that we have to be careful to be aware of. So Minnesota, we love Minnesota. Isn't that just beautiful? This is you can see the university in the background here. This is Market Street Bridge. This is about a block from my house. So I took this picture. So what's going on with all of these things that we're breaching? Air quality is changing here in Minnesota. This was from a picture of a year ago when climate change brought extreme heat episodes in the Pacific Northwest and in Canada. Again, this year we experienced the forest fires in Canada. We're positioned in Minnesota that have just been from right over our state. We see the outline of the state. So it doesn't matter that the trees aren't here. They are burning somewhere, and that jet stream is carrying it over our state. Our air quality index generally in Minnesota is in the green zone, maybe 20, 30. But this was what it was when the trees in Canada was in the south. And I didn't even I put this on my phone. I think I saw it as high as 285. That's dangerous for every single person to be on. Vector changes. I called this my family album in 2022. My son's a research biologist. He got a deer tick bite in upstate New York. He had to go on antibiotics to prevent Lyme disease. Came back, moved here to Minnesota. He's a professor at St. Louis College right now. Got another deer tick bite down in southern Minnesota. He had to go on antibiotics again. My little grandson was 2 years old, got a deer tick bite up walking on the shores of Lake Superior, and he had to be on antibiotics to prevent Lyme disease. My daughter was, who was pregnant at the time, got a deer tick bite at Richfield Nature Center here in the city. And when my granddaughter was born in April 2023, the cord blood tested positive for lumps. Since that time, I don't have the added pictures here, I've gotten a deer tooth bite, and my husband has gotten a deer tooth bite. This is not like one family that has terrible, terrible luck. This is everywhere, everywhere, and it was not usually in the states. Changes in temperature. You've all experienced it, the heat episodes that are very, very dangerous. But I keep reminding my colleagues, my international colleagues, is think about people that live in the cold, because we're also seeing changes. So this was up at Red Lake. This was on December 30th, so New Year's Eve. And it was so warm that the ice broke up there, and it stranded people who were out fishing. So these changes are happening everywhere. You have to follow like extreme weather events. There's the Mickey's. It was mentioned about the number of trees that they had, and everybody experienced some type of tree loss. But we have Hurricane Helene, we've got Los Angeles fire, most recently we've got Melissa. And these are billion-dollar events that are. And we can't shortchange the threats to mental health and well-being. Drought conditions, changes in what people once knew, the ability to grow crops, not let alone be able to sell their crops, has led to increased suicide rates among male farmers. Here. That's the tough stuff. And sometimes people say, you don't start with the tough stuff. You always have a hopeful message. I'm a nurse, and I don't say to somebody who's new, has a new cancer diagnosis, we're not going to talk about your diagnosis. We just want you to eat different, and we want you to exercise more. No, you need to know how serious these things are, and that you're in the midst of this. You're not alone, but we're going to give you enough knowledge so you know what's happening. So now I've just done that. Give you enough knowledge so you know we're in a pickle. Okay, that leads us to Planetary Health, which I believe is the solution, and I want to invite all of you to join the movement if you feel so called. So as I mentioned, Planetary Health, an ancient way of understanding, ancient way of knowing, current way of knowing among some cultures, but amongst those of us who are perhaps European Americans, Western-based science, it might be a relatively new way of thinking. So Planetary Health is 10 years old. We celebrate our 10th anniversary this year. It's a solutions oriented. So we're not putting all our science into the problem. We're putting all our science into the solution, which is a really good fit for this program. It's transdisciplinary field, meaning that every field, every group of people, everyone's needed in order to figure this out. The social movement, on focusing and analyzing and addressing the impacts of human disruptions in the human body to Earth's natural systems, on which human health and all life on Earth depend. I want to thank my colleague, Nicole Redvers, who is up in the Arctic region. She and I were just like so strong on this stuff. This has to be all life. This is not a human thing. We have to be concerned about all life. So two of us got that in. It's not replacing any of the other aspects of health that you might have heard about. It's not replacing One Health, which you saw mentioned, not replacing EcoHealth, it's not replacing environmental health, it's not replacing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's creating the big enough umbrella so we can all talk about it. And I want to really talk about this transdisciplinary piece, because it's more than just bringing you all in the same room together. It's more than just having lunch, and that was interesting. I sat next to a NASA scientist, or I sat next to somebody who is a ally or advocate for the farmers. That's not the point. The point is to create the environment where we're safe. It feels like I can open up and share things I'm aware of, but I'm listening differently to what you're sharing, and then we co-create something brand new. So I don't want just more nursing because I've sat down with different people. I want something new. And that's what transdisciplinary engagement is. So I think of it as you bring together a bucket of red paint, yellow paint, blue paint. And under the right circumstances, you're not making more red, more yellow, more blue. Purple, orange, and green become possible. And this is what we need right now. Something becomes possible that would not have been possible just within nursing, just within ag, just been law. So how does this all work? It starts with our opinions, so those things like values. It starts with examining our cultural values, our behaviors, our consumption patterns, our demographics, and our technologies. Because all of that right now are the underlying drivers of our problems. Our problems are not natural patterns. They wouldn't have occurred on their own. They are all driven by those underlying values, which then brings us to the collapse of the 9 systems, which then brings us to changes in air quality, fresh water, all the things that I mentioned. And then depending on these sort of personal experiences, which gets back to Patricia's work, depending on your level of wealth, depending on socioeconomic factors, structural determinant, that determines how sort of badly you're impacted. That's how this whole thing works. Is the problem. I'll put a star out there because it's also the source of our solutions. So as much as we can go down towards the health problem, we can expand out towards not just resilience, but flourishing. If we tackle these cultures, the values, the behaviors, our consumption patterns, and get into the right relationship with them. In the Planetary Health movement, we have several shared documents. The reason that we created this was I've been involved in the movement for a very long time. And I said, okay, we're going to be transdisciplinary. If a nurse and a farmer and an engineer are going to sit down and create something brand new, we've got to have a shared language or we're not going to be able to communicate. I'm going to be using healthcare language, someone else is going to be using engineering language, and it's just not going to work. So we brought together 24 experts from diverse fields from around the world, and we said, what does every college student, we were aiming for higher education at that point in time, every person in higher education, every graduate, what do we need to teach them so they start to practice with a planetary health lens? And we had over 500 suggestions. Well, you know, if you're a teacher, that's not going to work for 500 things in your curriculum. They don't, you know, a lot of faculty say, I don't have time to add one more thing. Well, 500 is definitely not going to be successful. So we worked together until we were able to boil it down into 5 core needs. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. That's our shared language. We have a shared global vision because you can all be speaking the same language, but if you're not headed in the same direction or have the same vision for the future, it's just not going to pull it off. And then most recently in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, we developed a shared strategy because we realized that there's certain parts of this whole work that needs to be done, focusing on governance, business, and education as major drivers of societal change. So here's our 5 core domains. And if you think about it as instead of linear of you do 1, then you do 2, then you do 3, don't think about it that way. It's like a rope. So then this is a cross section of a rope, where these are all twined and interconnected together. But we made it the heart of our document, this interconnection within nature. And it's a very, very different way of thinking about nature. If we don't get this right, we're not going to solve the problem. So and I'm very grateful to Indigenous colleagues for helping us understand this. It's not nature's over here, humans are here, let's reconnect. We were never disconnected. That's a false narrative. But by separating those two, it allowed us to cut down forests without any thought, mind the elements without any regard for that. It was the source of our brokenness. When we realized that nature and humans we are nature, we're nature. There is no separation. That's when the healing can start. It's a very, very different relationship. And again, I'm grateful to Indigenous people for helping us understand the source of our brokenness. Because once you tease apart, and once you start to do this, we also, in some cultures, tend to start going like this. And humans are better than nature. we're better than, we're more important than, we're exceptional. And we have to get beyond that. So interconnection within nature, Anthropocene and health, meaning that humans are cosmos. These aren't natural things, these aren't just a natural cycle, natural pattern. Humans are causing this mess, and we've got to be the solution. Equity and social justice, everything we do has got to be grounded in equity. This is not just a nice little tag along that, depending on, you know, who's has influence, it gets disappears or comes back. It's fundamental to finding the solutions we need. It's fundamental to flourishing. Equity and social justice is at the heart of our work. Okay, systems thinking and complexity. This is really challenging stuff. It is really, really complex, and it's hard to, it's not easy. The solutions are not easy. So as I hear about technological perspectives, we have to be thinking about, and who's missing from the table? What voices haven't I listened to? Have I consulted the health impacts downstream, long range of this technology I'm beginning to ideate? Have I consulted future generations of what does this decision mean? What are the impacts on all the rest of the system of my change what I'm proposing to do? And finally, it's not enough for our students to just think, it's our students need to learn how to act and build movements. So again, what happens externally is going on in our lungs. It's all interconnected. It's all the same thing. Humans are making this mess. Equity and social justice is non-negotiable, and those who contribute least to the problem suffer first and worst. Systems thinking and complexity. Look at this research that's been done both in the One Health space. There's One Health over here, One Health over here, Planetary Health over here. But look at all, this teeny little print. But amazing, amazing groups that are pulled in and starting to publish in this space. So snow globe, all the language you're using is going on in the planetary health world. Movement building and systems change. You're doing it, okay? You're doing it, and I want to celebrate that and recognize that you're creating a movement. So the second document, that was our 5 core domains. Second document is our vision. That's the Declaration of Sao Paulo, which is a shared global source document. The World Planetary Health group of people that are in practice said, okay, how do we do this? Well, we need a great transition. It's not just transforming education. It's not just, it's transforming every human system right now. Every human system has to be transitioned very quickly. So this is where I push back a little bit on resilience. It's not just being resilient to our economic model, being resilient to our education, the way our education is structured, or resilient to how we do farming. It's transforming everything. And if you want to just see it, again, a little bit of tiny prints, we have guidance for businesses, for governments, for media, for schools, for artists. Artists and the art world is included in this whole process of helping us live differently. And then finally, the Sao Paulo roadmap, which is looking at business governance. So what can you do? And like Karen, I had to look this up and read several articles before I could even say what I would recommend you to. So as researchers, scientists, people at the University of Minnesota, I really encourage us to be thinking transdisciplinary. We're moving a little bit in that way, but our students come thinking this way. They're not broken. They just want information. They go wherever they want. They choose it from wherever that. And then we say, you have to select a minor or a major. And you have to go to this library to get your information. And so we force them backwards instead of saying you're coming as a transdisciplinary thinker. How do we transform our classrooms and what we do so that we move ahead, we leap ahead? Emphasis on solution-focused inquiry, inclusive of all ways of knowing. So it's not just one way of knowing, it's not just scientific way of knowing, or it's the arts, it's indigenous ways of knowing, it's transcultural ways of knowing, involving all people in all countries. And we're really looking for partners around the world to be part of this. And we're promoting open science principles, open science practices. Everything in the Planetary Health movement is Creative Commons. It's available to all people. And we urge us to be able to communicate planetary health and increase public and political awareness of everyone's role in this space. So before I go to that, I just want to tell you about the Planetary Health Alliance. That's what's 10 years old since the start of the Alliance. It's now the Secretariat of Johns Hopkins University. When it started, there was a handful of people like us that said, this makes total sense. This resonates with what I believe. Now we're over 500 organizations in 80 different countries. The United Nations, the World Health Organization, is all using this language, and it is moving very, very quickly as a global movement. So I invite you to be part of this movement. I started the talk talking about threads and connections and how the threads are breaking. So I want to end the talk with this Ethiopian proverb. And those of us in Minnesota who hike a lot, if they're an early morning hiker, you know, you walk through the woods and the spiders have done their beautiful work during the night. They just kind of take your face in the little webs. And they're very fragile. And you might be feeling that way right now. I just feel like, who am I? What can one person do? What can one university do? What can one city or one state do? And what I want to say is back to the Ethiopian proverb. Put spider webs unite, but can try. Thank you very much.